At the hotel front desk, the receptionist slid my room key toward me with a folded note tucked underneath. When I opened it, in rushed handwriting were 4 words: "Do not take elevator." My heart skipped. I leaned closer and whispered, "Why?" She didn't smile. She only said one word: "Stairs." A few seconds later, the elevator doors opened to something I will never forget. Before I continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love connecting with all of you. That night had started out so ordinary. I had just arrived in the city for a work conference, tired from a long flight and the cab ride that followed. All I wanted was to check into my room, take a hot shower, and sleep. I was 27, traveling alone, but I had done this plenty of times before. Hotels always felt the same: bright lobbies, quiet music, the clatter of suitcase wheels across the floor, and strangers passing by, each lost in their own world. The hotel wasn't fancy, but it was clean and welcoming. The smell of fresh coffee lingered from the cafe in the corner, and a television in the lobby played the evening news on low volume. A few other guests were checking in, their conversations blending into a soft background hum. I pulled out my phone and texted my younger sister, Maya, who was at home. "Just checked in. Safe and sound." She replied instantly, as she always did. "Send me a pic of your room when you get there." That was our little tradition whenever I traveled. When I reached the front desk, the receptionist looked up with a polite smile. Her name tag said Clara. At first glance, she seemed calm and professional, but as she checked my reservation, I noticed something in her expression. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She seemed distracted, as if her mind was elsewhere. "Long day?" she asked lightly, sliding my ID back across the counter. "You have no idea," I said, trying to laugh it off. "I just need a bed and some silence." She gave a quick nod, printed the key card, and slid it across the desk. That was when I noticed the folded note under it. I picked it up without thinking much, expecting maybe a Wi-Fi password or a welcome message, but when I unfolded it, my stomach tightened. "Do not take elevator." I froze, staring at the words. I looked back up at Clara, confused. She leaned slightly forward, her voice low but firm. "Stairs, now." My heart pounded. The elevator was only a few feet away, its golden doors reflecting the soft lights of the lobby. A couple stood waiting beside it, chatting casually, completely unaware. Everything around me looked normal. Nothing seemed wrong, which only made the warning feel heavier. I swallowed hard, slipping the note into my pocket. "Why?" I whispered. Clara's eyes flicked toward the elevator, then back at me. Her voice dropped even lower. "Just trust me." That was all she said. I stood there at the front desk, the folded note still burning in my pocket, and felt my pulse quicken. I couldn't stop glancing at the elevator just a few steps away. Its golden doors stood perfectly still, reflecting the warm light of the lobby. Guests walked past casually, dragging their suitcases behind them, while a young couple pressed the button and waited with relaxed smiles. Everything looked so normal. That was what made the warning feel even more unsettling. I turned back to Clara, the receptionist. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes were sharp, almost pleading. She gave the slightest shake of her head as if to remind me, "Stairs, not the elevator." I forced a smile, thanked her quietly, and stepped away from the desk. My suitcase rattled across the marble floor as I moved toward the hallway. Every step felt heavy, my mind caught between logic and instinct. Why would she warn me not to take the elevator? What could possibly be wrong with it? Was it mechanical, or something far more dangerous? My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from Maya lit up the screen. "Did you get to your room yet? Send me that pic." Her words made me pause. I wanted to reassure her that everything was fine, but the truth was, nothing felt fine at that moment. I typed quickly, "On my way up now. We'll call you soon." As I neared the hallway, I hesitated, glancing again at the elevator. The couple from earlier stepped inside, laughing, their suitcases rolling behind them. The doors closed smoothly, and the soft ding announced its departure. They looked so calm, like nothing was wrong at all. Was I overreacting? I stopped, torn. The stairwell was just a few feet farther down, its plain white door marked with a red sign, but the elevator was right there, faster, easier, normal. Every other guest was using it without a second thought. Why should I be different? Still, Clara's voice echoed in my mind. "Stairs, now." I gripped the handle of my suitcase tightly, my palms starting to sweat. Something about the urgency in her tone had felt too real to ignore. It wasn't the voice of someone making a casual suggestion. It was the voice of someone trying to save me from something I couldn't see. A man in a suit walked past me, heading straight for the elevator. As the doors opened again, he stepped inside confidently, barely glancing around. The doors began to close, and for a moment I thought about following him, slipping inside at the last second. But just as I started to move, I caught sight of Clara watching me from the desk. Her eyes widened slightly, her head giving the faintest shake. That look froze me in place. I turned away from the elevator and headed for the stairwell instead. As I pushed open the heavy white door, a burst of cooler air hit my face. The stairwell was quiet, lit only by fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly above me. My footsteps echoed against the concrete steps as I started to climb, dragging my suitcase behind me. The sound felt too loud, like I was drawing attention to myself, even though no one was there. Halfway up, I stopped to catch my breath. My heart was still racing, my mind spinning with questions. What if Clara had been wrong? What if there was nothing to worry about, and I was just making this harder on myself? I pulled out my phone, considering calling Maya, but stopped. She would panic if I told her. I needed to stay calm. Then I heard it, the soft ding of the elevator stopping on my floor above. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The doors must have opened, but instead of the usual cheerful chatter of guests stepping out, I heard something else. Heavy footsteps. A metallic sound, like something clattering against the floor. Then a muffled voice, low and sharp, speaking words I couldn't make out. I pressed myself against the wall of the stairwell, my suitcase wheels bumping softly against the step. My skin prickled as I realized the warning hadn't been random. Something was happening on that floor, something I wasn't meant to walk into. I leaned toward the door, trying to listen more closely. Another thud echoed, followed by the sound of hurried movement. My chest tightened, fear curling deep in my stomach. Whoever had stepped out of that elevator wasn't a normal hotel guest. I gripped my phone, my thumb hovering over Maya's number. The words from Clara repeated in my head like an alarm. Stairs. Now, for the first time, I understood why. And standing there in that stairwell, I knew one thing for certain. If I had taken that elevator, I would have walked straight into whatever danger was waiting behind those doors. I stood frozen on the stairwell landing, my hand pressed against the cold wall, listening to the muffled sounds bleeding in from the hallway above, the faint scrape of shoes against the carpet, a metallic clatter that didn't sound like luggage wheels, then a sharp voice, hushed but commanding. My chest rose and fell quickly as I tried to steady my breathing. My legs wanted to move, but fear rooted me in place. I thought about the elevator doors opening just seconds earlier. I imagined myself stepping out with my suitcase, smiling politely at whoever was there. What would have happened? My stomach twisted. I didn't want to picture it too closely. The note in my pocket felt like it was burning against my skin. Do not take elevator. Clara hadn't given me a reason, but her eyes, the urgency in her voice, told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't trying to scare me. She was trying to save me. I swallowed hard and gripped the handle of my suitcase, dragging it carefully up another set of stairs. The wheels bumped against the steps, echoing in the hollow stairwell. I winced at the sound, terrified that whoever was in the hallway might hear me. My heart hammered so hard, I thought it might echo too. Halfway up, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I flinched, fumbling to silence it quickly. It was Maya calling. I hesitated, then answered, pressing the phone close to my ear and whispering. Hey, I said, my voice shaking. You sound out of breath, she said immediately. What's wrong? I bit my lip, torn between calming her and telling her the truth. I can't explain right now. Something's happening in this hotel. I need you to stay on the line with me, okay? Her voice went from casual to panicked in an instant. Hannah, what do you mean? Are you safe? I'm in the stairwell. I'm fine. I didn't take the elevator. Someone told me not to. There was silence on the other end, then a shaky reply. Please don't do anything stupid. Just get to your room. Lock the door. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. That's the plan. I shoved the phone between my ear and shoulder, pulling my suitcase higher. My muscles strained, but adrenaline pushed me forward. When I reached the next floor, I pressed myself against the stairwell door, listening. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, faintly, the sound of voices moving farther down the hall. They were leaving, or maybe looking for something. I didn't dare open the door. Instead, I climbed another set of stairs, my legs burning with effort. The stairwell felt endless. Each floor a new risk of stepping out too soon. I had no idea if the men were moving between floors, if the danger was contained to just one level, or if the whole building was unsafe. Finally, I reached the floor where my room was supposed to be. I checked the number on my keycard twice, my fingers trembling so badly I nearly dropped it. I held my breath and leaned against the door, listening carefully. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just silence. Still, I hesitated. Maya's voice broke through the phone speaker. Hannah, say something. You're scaring me. I'm here, I whispered. I think it's okay. I'm going to open the door now. Be careful. I slipped the keycard into the slot, praying the beep wouldn't sound too loud. The lock clicked, and I pushed the door open, dragging my suitcase quickly inside. I shut the door and locked it, bolting it shut and double-checking the chain. The room was quiet, dimly lit by a single lamp near the bed. I dropped my suitcase against the wall and leaned back against the door, trying to catch my breath. My hands still shook, my knees weak from the climb, and the fear that had been chasing me all the way up. I set the phone on speaker and placed it on the dresser. "I'm in my room," I told Maya. She exhaled sharply, relief flooding her voice. "Good, stay there. Don't go anywhere." But as I stood there, listening to her voice, I realized something important. Clara hadn't just warned me once. She had insisted. She had looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Stairs," like it was life or death. If the men in the elevator were still in the building, then staying silent wasn't enough. They were searching for something or someone. My room felt like a fragile bubble, safe for now, but vulnerable. I locked everything I could, pulled the curtains tight, and turned off the lights. My body ached for rest, but my mind refused to calm down. I replayed the sounds from the hallway, the metallic clatter, the urgent voices. They hadn't been normal guests. They had been carrying something. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone clutched tightly in my hand, and whispered to Maya, if I hadn't listened to her, I don't think I'd be safe right now. And in that moment, I knew the real choice wasn't just between stairs or elevator. It was between trusting my instincts or ignoring them. And tonight, listening had made all the difference. I sat in the darkened hotel room, the curtains drawn tightly, my phone still on speaker with Maya's voice, keeping me tethered to some sense of safety. My heart hadn't slowed since I left the stairwell. Every creak of the building made me jump, and every muffled sound in the hallway made me hold my breath. I told myself I was safe, but deep down, I knew the night wasn't finished with me yet. Then I heard it. The elevator chimed down the hall. That soft, cheerful ding that normally went unnoticed now struck me like a warning bell. I froze, my hand tightening around the phone. My room was close enough to the elevator lobby that I could hear the doors sliding open. What followed made my stomach twist. Heavy footsteps. At least 2 people. Their shoes hit the carpet with purpose, not the casual stroll of guests heading to their rooms. Then came a voice, low but sharp, muttering something I couldn't make out. The tone was enough to tell me these weren't tourists carrying bags of souvenirs. I crept toward the peephole in my door, my pulse thundering in my ears. Pressing my eye against it, I saw 2 men in dark clothing step out of the elevator. One carried a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. The other had something metallic in his hand that glinted under the hallway light. They weren't smiling. They weren't talking about dinner plans. Their eyes scanned the hallway like predators looking for prey. I stumbled back from the door, pressing my hand over my mouth to stop a gasp from escaping. On the phone, Maya's voice cut through in a whisper. "What is it? Hannah, what do you see?" I could barely form the words. 2 men. They came out of the elevator. They're not guests. The sound of a zipper pulling open made my blood run cold. I forced myself to peek again. The duffel bag lay open on the floor, filled with items that did not belong in a hotel hallway. Bundled wires, tools, something that looked terrifyingly like a small tank. My chest tightened. I didn't need to know exactly what it was to understand the danger. One of the men muttered, "Room's on this floor. Hurry up. Room." My knees nearly gave out. Were they looking for me? Was this why Clara had warned me? I backed away from the door, careful not to make a sound. Every instinct screamed at me to hide, to make myself invisible. I turned off the phone speaker and whispered into it as softly as I could. "Maya, don't hang up, but I need to stay quiet. Something is wrong. Please, just stay with me." She was crying now. "Call the police, Hannah. Right now." My hands shook as I dialed with my free hand. I whispered the details to the dispatcher, my voice barely audible. The hotel name, the floor, what I had seen. She told me officers were on their way, told me to lock the door and stay where I was. I wanted to believe that was enough, but I couldn't stop shaking. Outside, the footsteps grew closer. One of the men knocked on a door across the hall, a quick, hard rap. When no one answered, he tried another, then silence. I held my breath, terrified that my door would be next. And then, the metallic clang again. This time, it was right outside my door. I pressed myself against the wall, out of sight of the peephole, my entire body trembling. I could hear their voices clearer now. "Not this one. Keep moving." Relief washed over me so suddenly, I almost cried, but I stayed quiet, clutching the phone like it was the only thing keeping me alive. Moments later, shouts echoed from the lobby below. Clara's voice rose above the commotion, sharp and urgent. The men cursed under their breath, zipping up the bag and rushing back toward the elevator. The ding sounded again, the doors sliding shut, carrying them out of sight. Seconds later, the hallway erupted with noise. The stairwell door burst open, and uniformed officers flooded the floor. Radios crackled, commands barked. I stayed behind my locked door until one of them knocked and identified himself. My legs shook as I finally opened it, tears spilling down my face when I saw the badge on his chest. The officers swarmed the hallway, securing the duffel bag the men had left behind in their rush. I caught a glimpse inside as they carried it away. Devices, wires, things I didn't understand, but knew were dangerous. One officer looked at me seriously and said, "Ma'am, you were lucky. Whoever warned you saved your life." In that moment, I thought of Clara, her steady voice, her unwavering eyes, her quiet insistence that I take the stairs. She hadn't explained. She hadn't needed to. She had acted fast, and because I trusted her, I was standing here alive. I picked up my phone again. Maya's voice came through, shaking but relieved. "Are you okay? Hannah, please tell me you're okay." I sank onto the bed, nodding even though she couldn't see me. "I'm okay. It's over. But Maya, if I had stepped into that elevator, I don't think I would be talking to you right now." The hallway was still buzzing with noise when the officers finally cleared the floor. I sat on the edge of my hotel bed, shaking, as two of them asked me questions about what I had seen. My answers came out clipped and broken because I could hardly focus on the words. My mind was still replaying the moment I saw the duffel bag, the metallic objects glinting under the lights, the men's voices whispering with such purpose. One officer placed a comforting hand on my shoulder and said, "You did the right thing by listening to the warning. That decision saved you." His words struck me deeply. Saved me. After they left, I stayed in the room with the door locked, listening as the hotel slowly calmed down. The flashing lights of police cars painted the street below, and I could hear the faint hum of radios through the walls. I picked up my phone again, and Maya's voice came through, shaking with worry. "Are you safe now?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered, though my hands still trembled. "The police are here. It's over." But Maya, it was real. There really was danger. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't listened. Promise me you'll always trust your gut like you did tonight." I promised her, and for the first time since I arrived, I let myself cry. Not the quick tears of panic I had been fighting back, but the release of everything I had held inside. The fear, the confusion, the realization of how close I had come to stepping into that elevator. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, soft and warm, but the memory of the night before was still sharp. I went down to the lobby, my legs heavy with dread, but also a determination to find Clara. She was there behind the desk, her expression calm as ever, though I could see the fatigue in her eyes. When she saw me, she gave the smallest nod, as if she had been waiting for me. "Thank you," I said, my voice breaking. "You didn't owe me anything, but you warned me anyway. If I hadn't listened, My words trailed off, and I couldn't finish the sentence. Clara's gaze was steady. "You don't need to thank me. You just needed to listen. Most people wouldn't have." "Why me?" I asked quietly. Her eyes flicked briefly toward the elevator, then back at me. "Because sometimes you can tell when danger is near, and sometimes you can't. I could see it coming. You couldn't. That's why I had to act." I wanted to ask her more, what she knew, how she had sensed it, but I realized it didn't matter. What mattered was that she had cared enough to say something when she could have stayed silent. That stayed with me long after I left the hotel. On the flight home, I looked out at the clouds and thought about how fragile safety really is. We go through our days trusting that locks, doors, and routines will protect us. But sometimes protection comes down to a single choice: to listen to a warning, to believe someone who risks telling you the truth. I thought about how easily I could have brushed off Clara's note. I could have rolled my eyes, laughed, and taken the elevator like everyone else. And if I had, I might not be sitting there on that plane. That thought chilled me. The lesson I carried with me wasn't about hotels or elevators. It was about trust. Trusting instincts. Trusting the quiet urgency in someone's voice. Trusting that sometimes the smallest decision, turning left instead of right, taking stairs instead of the elevator, can change everything. When I finally saw Maya again, she hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. She whispered, "You came back. That's all that matters." And she was right. That night in the hotel, I had learned something I will never forget. Survival doesn't always come from being brave or strong. Sometimes it comes from listening, even when you don't fully understand. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing your stories too.